I'm Lisa Anderson, president of LMA Consulting Group and host of Supply Chain Chats. I'm thrilled to be here today with Joe Van Tassel, who's a technical recruiter and expert in what's going on in the job market and recruiting side of talent, finding talent for manufacturers, distributors, and technical talent. Thrilled to be here today with you, Joe.
Well, I appreciate you having me. Thanks, Lisa.
Let's just jump right in. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you're seeing happening in the marketplace and what trends stand out to you currently.
Yeah, so I think it's especially this year in 25, you're seeing, and it's not terribly different from the previous 3 or 4 years, but there's definitely more sense of urgency to automate most of the manufacturing facilities or logistic facilities nationwide. I mean, they're obviously trying to onshore more manufacturing, and they're trying to make things more available to people in the United States. So I think you're definitely starting to see that urgency of getting facilities up and running. And I also think you're starting to see a lot of those technologies become more reasonably priced when you're talking about robots and vision systems where, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, they were more expensive and maybe only for the large companies to be able to afford. But you're starting to see that trickle down into some of the mid-sized companies and the small companies to get access to these tools. And I think that drives up the demand for people at all levels that can do these types of skills.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I've been saying to manufacturers that they need to ramp up. I see big volume coming our way. It's just we've been going through an uncertain time here with tariffs, and prior to the bill being passed that provided clarity on the tax rates, or at least continuing the better tax rates for these types of folks. So I'm seeing an increase as well. And so is that meaning that they're starting to look for more high-skilled talent as they're trying to automate positions?
Yeah, I think there's two things going on there. Yeah, for sure, you're starting to find more people focusing on those skills, like controls engineers that are automating the PLCs to get these solutions to work, people that are running the strategy of those types of solutions. You're also seeing, with a lot of onshoring going on, there's certainly a skill gap from a lot of the skills that are needed, like welding, CNC machining, some of the more hands-on roles. Yeah. And I think that's kind of been a little bit of the challenge, right? I think it was 25 years ago, we started shipping a lot of those jobs overseas, and we stopped educating a lot of the public about, some of these very rewarding type positions or career paths.
Yeah.
And now with everything coming back 25 years later, we're looking for a lot of those lower skilled workers, and we just don't have them. And so I think there's a willingness for people to learn it. And I think the United States has to probably get an infrastructure to be able to do that. But in the meantime, you're looking at different types of robotic solutions potentially, maybe for the short and for the long term. So we're seeing both, to be honest with you, as you onshore more things.
I see. You're seeing an increased need for like manufacturing type roles, if you will, as well as folks who can help automate, utilize robotics. There's countless types of advanced technologies these days. Digital twins, I don't know. Actually, that's a really good point. Which technologies are you seeing that are most prevalent, or that most companies are starting to think about actually deploying?
That piece of it varies company by company, because sometimes you may have more inspection or quality type solutions rather than take the human out of it to make something more efficient. But if it's more of a remedial task, potentially a robotic solution is a better option there. But I'm sure you're seeing this a lot. I mean, especially in supply chain, it's a mixture of all of it, right? If I can get away from a forklift and a more manual setting, and I can create more of a conveyor vision robotic solution, I think you're understanding your inventory better. You're starting to understanding your throughput, what's in, what's out. You're tracking things a lot better. So I think humans, as great as an asset as they are, they can make mistakes. And in those types of environments, you're seeing kind of a multi complex solution as opposed to maybe some of the more remedial solutions at other
Yeah.
facilities.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I'm also seeing, I don't know, advanced technologies, even like in terms of better utilizing their ERP systems, advanced planning systems, inventory optimization, and those types of softwares, as well as, the IoT and, like you said, vision systems. Glad you brought it up, because not all companies are created equal. Not everybody should just pursue whichever, artificial intelligence, robotics, whatever, because they see that as, what is out there in the industry. They should really look at, I think, what their company needs and what's really gonna like propel them forward, and what talent they currently have, and where they want to go. Would you agree with that?
I would. I think, one of the things from a search perspective, when we're looking or aligning and partnering with companies and trying to find them talent, the most important thing is getting all the key stakeholders aligned on what kind of talent they want. And I think it's the same with these solutions, right? I mean, there's a lot of solutions out there. Somebody may think a robotic solution may be more efficient, or somebody says, hey, we need to upgrade this ERP system. There's so many ways to potentially approach a problem. But I think it comes down to the leadership, and the companies that we love working for are the ones that are just so clearly aligned, and everybody has some sort of input, but there's a vision to what they're trying to accomplish. But like you said, there's a lot of companies out there where you think, hey, they're probably aligned. It's a well-run company. And once you get in there and you figure it out, there's a lot of opportunities where they could certainly shore up some inefficiencies and some alignment. And so I think that's what it always boils down to when we're working with any of these companies.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So given that there is a skills gap, it seems like the more folks utilize some of these advanced technologies, whichever ones they utilize, they're going to need higher skilled resources. At the same time, to your point, it sounds like you're saying that they also need some of the traditionally lower skilled, but more maybe lower skilled in terms of the technical side of things, but still technical talent to fill the gap, because they're going to need to ramp up quickly. Did I hear you correctly, or is that what you were saying?
Yeah. Well, and I think if you think traditionally about manufacturing facilities 20, 30 years ago, I mean, they weren't thought of as necessarily always that highly technical. And I think things have gotten to that point, and they're going to continue to get to that point. There's so much opportunity there, where the talent that we're recruiting now they need more of it. They need more electrical engineers and mechanical engineers and folks that are coming up with these types of solutions. There's just not enough of them. And to that point, you need software engineers to develop the embedded software on a lot of these different hardware kits. So there's no shortage. If you have a son or a daughter that's looking to get into professions like that, there's no shortage in that industry. And I don't see it changing in the foreseeable future, because oftentimes, like I was mentioning before, you think of the Amazons and the Walmarts, these companies that have all these technologies, but there's these small and mid-sized companies that still need these solutions that most of them are so far behind. So there's so much more opportunity for these solutions to be kind of sent out into the market. And so they need talent for that.
No, it makes sense. What can a company do, or an executive do, to stand out to get the best talent? Or is there anything that will give them an advantage? It sounds like being aligned would be a good place to start, but is there any, do you have any ideas or tips for companies, for the company side of the equation?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. And we're sitting in the space all day long trying to figure out how to stand out. And I think what I'd first say is that, number one, it's a very noisy environment right now. And I'm sure, you or anybody else, it's like, I'm getting text messages saying, hey, I think you're a good fit for this job. And it's completely random. It could be like a warehouse job, or it could be, a head of recruitment job, but it's just random. And what I mean by that is it's noisy, and
right.
Everybody feels that. And so why I mention that is because when you're reaching out to people, everybody is numb to being reached out to 1,000 times a day. And it's like, is this really a good opportunity? Most of the time you just kind of discount it. And I think it's really important that you think about that, because how are you standing out to these people? How are you reaching out to them? How are you getting in front of them? Is it just an email? Are you trying to text them? Are you trying to call them? How are you standing out? And
Right.
especially in a day with AI, there are so many solutions that are just ramping up, touching people. Like how can I get in front of more people fast? But it's not a high valued or quality touch. And so what I would tell companies is you need to find a way to pierce that noise, but you do that mostly with your brand and your culture. And if you have a good brand and a good culture and people stay at your company for a long time and they have good longevity, those things stand out to candidates. And I think it's really important that you're constantly working internally first and building all of that out before you have this external brand, because
Right.
candidates know a lot more than they used to before they even talk to you. And so,
I mean, they can look online, right, and find out quite a bit about, hiring managers and,
yeah, there's
company
obviously
culture.
review sites, which I don't really promote too much because a lot of people that are going to review sites are, disgruntled and things like that. So I don't think it's necessarily a good thing. But one thing I always encourage candidates to do is, go on LinkedIn, go on their company page, and it will tell you how long, the average employee stays there. And I think it's a good indicator, right? I mean, if
Yeah, it's a good
somebody's staying
indicator.
there long, they're trusted, they trust the company, they're respected, there's growth opportunities. I think those are important. I mean, it's a basic thing, but if you're looking for stability, if you're looking for growth opportunities, it's a good place to start. And it's really kind of simple. So those are things that you could tell people, hey, we're a good company. We've got people that stay here a long time, and then you go online, you see the longevity is a year and a half. It's like people can see through the stuff now these days.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Uh, I guess the other two questions I have, which may be related, I don't know, but is there anything else you can think of from how do you remain competitive in today's marketplace? And then, how does all this relate to AI? Which they might be two big questions here, if you will, or too vague, but answer what you'd like that you think we'll
When you
ask you
say
about.
competitive in terms of recruiting,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I think there's two things that the first thing is your product, right? I mean, do you have sexy products? Do you have cool projects that these folks are working on? I think it's important to look at that because, in my view, you have people that are either looking for that component or they're looking for the consistency and the longevity of a partnership with a company. And so I think if you're focusing on one or the other, I don't think it really matters because there's a lot of people out there that are looking for both. But if you have good projects, if you have good products, and you're challenging your staff, I think that brings a lot to the table, right? And there's a lot of companies
absolutely.
out there that they don't have maybe I always say the sexiest products, they don't.
Right.
But there's other things that you can be appealing to. There's a lot of people out there, and there's a lot of things that people are looking for that aren't just about how cool your products are. But that being said, if that's your brand and that's your culture and you want cool products, you'll attract those people. So I think when you think about that, it's like, who are you and what are you good at?
Yeah.
Lean into it and stop trying to be everything because a lot of times we fall short when we try to be everything.
I completely agree with that. We know each other through a trusted advisor network, and those folks that really try to be everything to everybody are known for nothing. So it's best to
Yeah,
be, like you said, stick to your strengths and convey your brand.
that's
Well,
it.
so I guess the last question, Joe, unless you could either answer, what do you see as far as AI and how does it relate to this topic, and perhaps like leave us with, well, let's answer that question first.
Yeah.
Do you see anything about AI?
Of course you do. You hear
Rethinking.
about it. AI is a topic that I think most business owners and leadership is still trying to explore, like how to use it, how to deploy it within their organization. What's the most efficient way? And I think incrementally getting into it is probably the best approach. I'm not an AI expert by any means, but it can be incredibly valuable for basic usage. And as you learn more on it, you can grow it. And from a recruiting perspective, I can tell you that I would think that maybe it's been a year. I mean, it's certainly been longer than that, but last year was probably the first year where you really heard applicant tracking systems were leveraging AI. They're screening resumes, they're screening people. And I can tell you that they're still working out the kinks in that. I mean, I've heard mixed reviews on both the client side and the candidate side, where I think they don't know what to expect yet. What are they getting from this? Is it really that useful yet? And I think they're going to make mistakes. And last year, I know that I talked to a lot of candidates that they would never hear back from companies, tons of people. It was a resounding, nobody's communicating with me. And I find that to be unique, because then I would talk to a lot of clients that were looking to hire, and they're like, we can't find candidates. No candidates are getting it. So there's a huge disconnect. And it's, because I don't want to blame it on AI, but there is an introduction of that product last year at a pretty significant rate. And I know there's success stories there too, but there's a feeling out period there. So I always tell candidates, still be old school, reach out to these companies directly, to the hiring managers, the HR contacts, get them to know who you are, and kind of what we were talking about before with the clients. How do you stand out? How do you stand out as a candidate?
Yep.
Reach out, be more personal, tell a little bit about your story, why you're interested in the company, and why you've done research and all of these things. Do a little bit more, as opposed to applying to 100 job openings. You're not going to get much feedback. So spend more time having a quality touch with a company, as opposed to just a spam effort.
I think that's absolutely true. I think it's really valuable advice. Nesbitt always said, high tech, it means you have to have high touch. Yeah. So in essence, that's what you're saying. So I completely agree with that philosophy. You'll stand out of the crowd. Yeah. Well, it's hard to believe that our time is running short. Is there any last thought you would like to leave us with as it relates to recruiting, or whatever you think would be most relevant here?
No, the only thing I've mentioned is we focus mostly in manufacturing distribution and in the IT field. And I would tell you, it's a very interesting time right now on the manufacturing distribution side. We've had a lot of activity since the beginning of the year, which is a very different landscape than it was the year before that, or year and a half before that. So I think there's a real excitement and enthusiasm to build up manufacturing and distribution here locally. I'm seeing that from our companies. And so it's an exciting time where people are moving around and we're getting people hired. So a lot of hope and excitement for the future here.
I love it. That's a great way to wrap up the session. And I'm seeing the same thing. So I think the idea here is to get ahead. I mean, you need top talent in key positions to be successful. And so I highly recommend that you follow Joe's advice and get in touch with him as well. I'll include his information in the blog article. Well, thank you very much, Joe, for joining us today, and appreciate it.
I appreciate the time. Thanks, Lisa.